So I just got done watching No Way Home for the second time because I really wanted to digest this movie and come to a final verdict of how I feel about it. I gotta say, I love this movie. I love this movie because it is a fan service wet dream come to life, and you can't even hate it for that because it's fan service that's just done so well. One of the issues you have when you start getting to this nostalgia jerk-off fest type of stuff that happens is that it exists purely for the fan service. And in this movie, what they did right, it wasn't just fan service. They really tried to tell a pretty good story and ultimately do some interesting stuff with the MCU Spider-Man and his story, which I think decisions that they made in this movie are absolutely brilliant, because one of the main criticisms that people have had, including myself, with Tom Holland's MCU Spider-Man is that they do away with the whole Uncle Ben thing and Tony Stark basically is the replacement. What ended up happening is that Spider-Man really just feels like kind of a side character to the rest of the Avengers, and his standalone movies are a little less serious, a little more on the friendly neighborhood side. What's been missing is that grounding element that makes Peter Parker have to make a lot of sacrifice. He needs to be the everyman. He needs to not just be a kid, but he needs to be faced with some serious responsibility. That's what they do in this movie. They turned everything about Peter's MCU universe on its head, literally, by the end of the movie, in a way that stays true to what Spider-Man was supposed to be in the first place, which is he doesn't have crazy technology, he doesn't have fucking Tony Stark's magic machine that he can just make a random suit in like 5 minutes just diddling with shit. They took away all that, brought it back down to the base. Now you finally left the door open to possibilities that cut Spider-Man off from the Avengers. So now, for now, it's just gonna be, I assume, him standalone dealing with his own shit, and that's what we've been missing. We've been missing a really independent Spider-Man story. Now he has a chance to really try and be Spider-Man and not Iron Boy Jr., not little Tony Stark 2. He's gonna be able to face things on his own. That's what he's always been about. Now, all the villains, well, most of the villains are done very well. They did the little cheat workaround where you can introduce all fucking 6 villains at the same time and they already have their backstories. So they cheated their way right into that, but you know, it works. It was amazing to see Alfred Molina back as Doc Ock. I feel like he was kind of underutilized in this film. He fixed the chip. He's the first one to get like a cure to his villainous ways, which by the way, I feel like that they just made that way too easy. They all just fucking magically came up with serums, and in the span of like 10 minutes they have the cure for every single one of these villains, which, you know, okay, fine, you can suspend a little bit of disbelief for that, but maybe that could have been handled a little bit differently. Which, by the way, I really honestly feel like this should have been a 2-parter movie, because there's just so much you can do with this kind of a situation. We're introducing all these characters. If they split this into 2 parts, there would have been major improvements to just the overall story. Even though you already have the backstories and everything for all the characters, I feel like there's just some more meat that you could have added to this, especially with Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. Holy shit. Holy shit. I'm telling you, I got chills watching Willem Dafoe. This is peak Goblin. You cannot ask for anything better than what No Way Home gave us for the Green Goblin. You know, everybody's gonna talk about when Spider-Man's wailing on him in the apartments, hitting his face, and he's just laughing his ass off. Complete Joker moment. I'm telling you, I have never felt such menace and absolute chaos and villainy so vividly since probably Heath Ledger's Joker. Like, it's just that potent. You could just taste how fucking evil he was, and it was amazing. I just wish if they took this version of the Green Goblin and they gave it a more serious, dramatic film to put him in. that's not, you know, related to entire MCU. If they just did like a standalone movie with just Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin versus Peter Parker, you know, that would have been probably one of the best movies of all time. Obviously he's amazing as well in the original Tobey Maguire 2002 Spider-Man, but what brings this just a little edge is the fact that he's so much stronger. They really give him a chance to really be just that much crazier, because I feel like in this he's a little bit older. Well, I mean, obviously, but it seems like he's lived with the Goblin for a lot longer, and that he's just completely broken after like fucking 10 years of dealing with a split personality. He's just becoming a shell of himself, not really knowing who he is. Like, you have so much to play around with that in a story. Even as much as they used Green Goblin in this movie, you feel like they could have done even more. I'm telling you, if Willem Dafoe had a Green Goblin based movie, or at least a movie where it's just solely him in a Spider-Man story, that could be Oscar worthy. I'm not even fucking exaggerating with that. That's how fucking good he is.
You tried to fix me. Make your bed. Now I'm gonna fix you.
Fucking beautiful what that man can do. Bring a character to life. Aunt May dies. That was unexpected. You know, one of the problems I had coming into this movie was like, I really hope they don't dumb down the Green Goblin specifically. And I'm so glad they did what they did in making him kill Aunt May. That is just that kind of destruction, beating down Peter Parker's life, destroying it. That is what the Green Goblin is. He feels like an absolute scary motherfucker because he can just do anything. And he's not like the Joker in that the Joker messes with your mind, but he's not physically intimidating. This, the Goblin, is both mentally and physically destructive. You cannot ask for a better villain than that. Oh, I just absolutely love that moment where Tom Holland senses that Norman Osborn is changing into the Green Goblin. And that's probably one of the most effective uses of the vertigo dolly zoom effect in a modern age movie that doesn't feel like over the top, because they didn't do it like a quick one like you usually see. They did like a really slow one and they held on the shot. Really felt a sense of some shit is about to go down, and when it goes down, easily the best part of the movie right there. Tom Holland Spider-Man gets absolute shit beat out of him by Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. Oh man, I just wish we had more, because there was so much that you could have just dug your teeth in. Oh, so good. Easily the highlight of the movie, Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. Expectations exceeded. The rest of the villains, you know, they had their moments. You know, Doc Ock was great. Underutilized, like I said, I felt. Fucking Dr. Connors, you know, he's okay. Sandman, I feel like his motivation was a little bit iffy. He started off as kind of like a helpful character, which makes sense, and then he just sort of turned for some reason. I feel like he probably should have just stayed on the helping side, or at least given him a better reason to turn. Fucking Electro, way better direction with this character than Amazing Spider-Man 2. This version of the character is just way more natural. It's not so cartoony like it was in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Whoa, well, look who's here. Spidey.
You want to know how powerful I am? Yeah. Well, so do I.
So, moving on to the big three. Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield. Holy shit. You know, I have a lot of problems with The Amazing Spider-Man, but I am so happy with what they did with this character in this movie. My issues with Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, well, his Spider-Man was good, but I felt like they went too hard, they leaned too hard in on the quippy side of him, sort of made him into a little bit of an asshole. His version of Peter Parker is also kind of selfish, because at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 1, he like promises Captain Stacy that he's not gonna interact or be in a relationship with Gwen anymore, and then he just does it anyway, because, you know, fuck that. He's gotta get some Gwen pussy, am I right? Like, that wasn't very Spider-Man-ish at all. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man at the end of his first movie, he rejects MJ because he knows he's gonna put her in danger and all that. That's what Spider-Man's supposed to do. But in this movie, Andrew Garfield, you know, he's just really likable. He's a great actor. I don't blame any of the issues with The Amazing Spider-Man or even his performance on him, because he's an absolute talent. You know, he's amazing in The Social Network. He's done a lot of great shit. I was surprised how good their chemistry is together, because they're all very different kinds of Spider-Man. Part of it is just them being great actors. You know, Tobey Maguire is a great actor. Andrew Garfield is a great actor. Tom Holland in this movie, probably the best he's ever been, especially when May dies. He can deliver 100% on those really emotional, impactful scenes. Tom Holland is absolutely amazing in this movie. But yeah, all three of them together, they were funny, they were dynamic, they were interesting, they stayed true to their own individual interpretations of the character, which was great. I really like that they showed more personality from all of them. Tobey Maguire, holy shit, am I just so happy to see him on the screen again. Not just for nostalgia reasons, that's an element of it too, but he's a very underrated actor in my opinion, and seeing him be able to just take on the suit again, that's what I'm talking about, the fan service wet dream. They have their little moments where they're all talking about, you know, Toby's organic web coming out versus Tom and Andrew's web shooter stuff. Literally like a Reddit forum discussion come to life. This movie is like a fever dream. It just didn't even feel real. And also I feel like they threw in a lot of the memes, which, you know, is funny, and I'm glad they did that, but I feel like they should have toned it down just a little bit. Like 1 or 2 is fine. Maybe even 2 or 3. But once you get to 3 and 4 memes and jokes, then it starts getting a little bit. It's like they pulled every single major meme that you could think of and put it into this movie. One of my issues, they reused too many of their old lines in the other movies. Like, it felt like a little bit too cheap and a little too easy. Doc Ock says power of the sun in the palm of my hand like twice. I felt like that really cheapened that line because it's a really good one. I'm something of a scientist myself. I mean, sure, you know, just have it in there, of course. It's gonna get a laugh. Embracing the meme culture. What are you gonna do? I love that they made Toby what he's supposed to be in this movie, which is a more seasoned, more, you know, mature, more adult version of Spider-Man. I like that they kind of went in the direction with Andrew Garfield, where, like he said, he's really resentful and bitter after death of Gwen Stacy. So you get like all 3 different stages of Spider-Man, and that moment where he gets to save MJ in this movie, I felt like they really gave a lot of closure to all their characters. One of my issues though has to deal with some of the character relationships, because I really felt like there's so much more to dive into. Like, you have Otto Octavius and Norman Osborn, who up to this point have not had, you know, they weren't ever in the same movie. So, but in this movie you sort of get the sense that they do have some sort of relationship. They could have developed that, done something interesting with that. They just never really went there. A lot of stuff that was there just below the surface, but it could have gone deeper. So that's part of why I feel like this would have been better. It's 2 movies where you get like a whole movie arc. And then another great moment near the end of the movie was when Tom Holland is wailing on the Green Goblin, and then he's literally about to kill him. I love that Toby is the one who jumps in, stops him in that moment. That's just a great moment. There's no words said. Toby just looking directly into Tom Holland's eyes. He's like, you know, this isn't you. This isn't who you're supposed to be. This isn't who we are. And then they do the whole thing where he gets stabbed, and then you're like, oh fuck. When that happened, I was like, oh no, they're not gonna fucking kill Tobey Maguire in this movie, are they? Of course they are. But then they don't. So I have the distinct feeling that they actually originally killed him off, but then they did like fucking test screenings or something, and then they're like, you know what, let's bring him back because the dynamic between all of them is so good. We want to leave the door open for possibilities in the future. Because the way they did that, it really, for like 5 whole seconds, you were like, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man is dead. Did the whole music cue and everything. I don't know how I feel about that, because maybe it would have been better if he was killed off, but maybe it wouldn't be. They had a lot of cute banter with each other. I like that little moment where threw in the fucking thing with Tobey Maguire in his back. My back! Call back to Spider-Man 2. They had a really fun dynamic. I just want to see more. I wanted to see more of all of this. You really could have done 2 movies. And then you'd have 2 fucking big cash grab jerk-off fest for Kevin Feige. Yeah, I haven't been super excited for a movie in a while, you know. Dune was great. Other than that, You don't really have these big spectacle movies anymore that people just come together and see. It's very rare these days that you even have a packed theater on opening weekend because of COVID and all this shit. So when you get to experience a really vibrant audience reacting to some crazy shit happening on screen, that's just movie magic, you know? There's a lot of fucking opinions about what the MCU is, but the thing I will give credit to the MCU for is that they take notes. They listen to criticism and they do their best to try and incorporate a little more improvement in each phase, I guess. They know how to make absolute entertainment, let's put it that way. They know how to entertain the fuck out of the audience. And let me tell you, you just can't hate that. You just can't hate an amazing ride. The way this movie ends is absolutely perfect. Any direction they could have taken this in with fucking Doctor Strange magic shit, what they did, they flipped Peter Parker's whole shit around and they turned him back into the regular guy. That is just perfect. Because now, he doesn't have to be anything related to the Avengers, for now at least. I don't know how they're gonna reincorporate him back, because obviously they're gonna do that, but for now, he gets to have his own story, he has to have his own problems. I don't know what's gonna happen now that he doesn't even have Aunt May anymore, but we'll see. I'm also looking at Doctor Strange sequel, directed by Sam Raimi. None other. Really interested to see what Sam Raimi brings to a Doctor Strange universe. That man has an absolute directorial signature, and I really hope they do not dumb down Sam Raimi's directorial voice, because part of what made his original Spider-Man film so great, Spider-Man 1 and 2, is that he had this brilliant sense of how to incorporate comedy with drama and have these weird, bold choices and mix it all together in this really dramatic, engaging story that wasn't afraid to be adult at times and be pretty violent at times. Sam Raimi comes from the Evil Dead, indie horror film side of things. So when he does violence, he does it brilliantly. In my opinion, that fight in Spider-Man 2002 between Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and the Green Goblin in the abandoned building is still, in my opinion, the best 1v1 climax fight ever done in a superhero movie. And I'm talking about even better than fucking The Dark Knight Rises, Bane versus Batman. I'm talking about of all time in a superhero movie. That fight scene is the best because the way Sam Raimi handles brutality is so visceral. Absence of music, Peter's just getting the fucking shit beat out of him. You feel that desperation. You feel like he's really fighting for survival. Like the Goblin is gonna fucking kill him. Like kill him. And you actually feel like he's gonna do it. You actually feel like Spider-Man's gonna lose. That's one of the only times in a superhero movie at the climax where you feel like, oh fuck, he might actually not win this. Or if he does, somebody else has to come in and save him. In my book, that fight sequence is my favorite of all time. It is just done so well. Willem Dafoe's Goblin is just absolutely violent.
Misery, misery, misery. That's what you've chosen. I offered you friendship, and you spat in my face.
And the reason why I still like it better than the fight sequence he had in No Way Home is that in No Way Home, obviously they gave him way more amped up super strength. He's literally throwing Peter through fucking apartment floors. There's a little bit more of that supernatural element to it, whereas in the 2002 fight, it's a lot more grounded. Number one, there's very little CGI, so it's very visceral. That scene borders on the R rating, just in the tone alone for how violent and brutal it is. Not even Christopher Nolan's fights have ever been that dark. And that's why I love Sam Raimi so much, is he finds this impossible balance of just goofy decisions, funny stuff, and then super dramatic stuff, and then super violent stuff, all in one package, and all feels like the same vision. It doesn't feel like it's all disjointed. It feels like one singular one singular thing. Overall, what would I give this movie? I would give it a solid 8 out of 10 for what it is and what it's trying to do. You just can't hate a movie that entertains this well. It's just too fun to watch, even from a narrative standpoint, which I still think it still had its weaknesses. And again, the ending with Tom Holland making the bigger man choice, the Spider-Man choice, the responsible choice, breaking that promise of trying to tell MJ, Ned, all the shit that happened, fucking zip that shit up. I love that little moment where he saw that little, the bandage on Zendaya's head. You could tell in that moment he's like, I can't put these people that I care about through any more shit. He already lost Aunt May. I guess this has been like a little whole origin trilogy, as they're calling it right now. The home trilogy. Oh yeah, I'm really glad, by the way, one last thing. I'm really glad that they let Aunt May give the "with great power comes great responsibility" line. Like the actual line. Not like a really watered down, roundabout way of saying, sometimes you gotta fucking... I feel like with every iteration, they just fucking made it more and more long-winded with the responsibility line. The Amazing Spider-Man, Uncle Ben was saying like if you've got the power to change things, you've got the moral obligation to do those things.
If you could do good things for other people, you had a moral obligation to do those things.
In Civil War, he says something like, if you can do things that I can and you don't, and then the bad things happen, then they happen because of you.
When you can do the things that I can, but you don't, and then the bad things happen, they happen because of you.
It's like, oh man. I feel like this is when you're trying to write an essay and you're trying to not use the better, concise essay you're trying to copy off of, trying to not plagiarize it as best as you can. That's what it feels like. So I'm really glad they just let her say the actual fucking line. I'm really glad they killed off Aunt May. They needed that stake, they needed that weight to the story, they needed those consequences. What Tom Holland's Spider-Man movie has been missing a lot of is really dire consequences, and I can say that probably for the rest of the MCU as well, besides, Endgame and Infinity War, which is that they are very tiptoey about killing off characters because, they want to extend this whole universe for I don't know how many years. Then you don't have any stakes in the fucking story. You fucking lose the impact that movies like Sam Raimi's original Spider-Man's had. They don't feel as important. They don't feel as big. They don't feel the extreme danger that Peter is in. Homecoming, you have the Vulture, which is great. Michael Keaton, incredible in that role, very menacing, but still wasn't like, you never really felt like Peter was in that much danger. And then in No Way Home, you had Mysterio. Jake Gyllenhaal, also really great casting. I love the way they're casting the villain so far. It's great, but they haven't gone full on with the stakes until now, and I'm glad they did it. Solid 8 out of 10. I mean, it's not a fucking art piece, not a cinematic masterpiece or anything, but for what the movie is and what it's trying to achieve, 8 out of 10. I still feel like they should have extended the story into 2 parts and really let the characters flesh out, really let them breathe, sink their teeth into that. I really wanted to see more Goblin killing some people, doing some crazy shit, chewing out. I really wanted a sit-down face-to-face scene between Willem Dafoe and Tom Holland or something, kind of like in The Dark Knight with Joker, Batman, the interrogation room, or something like that, where they get a moment not physically fighting, but they're just going head-to-head just with their words, and let them just act the fuck out of that shit. Sad that we didn't get that, but what we did get, can't complain about too much. No, it's fun. I'm starting to not hate the MCU, which is a weird thing to say. What multiverse is this? I don't know, man.